A pitcher's duel at Spillane Field tonight between the Wareham Gatemen and the Brewster Whitecaps, and the Gatemen come out on the good side with a 4-1 win over the last place team in the Cape Cod Baseball League. Hi everybody, welcome into the Gatemen Postgame Show alongside Henrique DaMour and Cameron Stuart. I'm JD Raucci. A big win tonight for the Gatemen, snapping a 2-game losing streak, and tonight the big guy at the plate was Jacob Goldfarb.
Yeah, he was absolutely awesome. Jacob Goldfarb, the new pickup for Wareham out of Cotuit, originally had just one Cape League hit all year. That was his second Cape League hit of the year, and it was a monster double into the left center gap to score 2, and what ended up being a pretty pivotal hit as it gave the Gatemen some much-needed breathing room. I think it made Nathan Florence and Ryan Stoudemire out of the pen feel a little more comfortable. We talked about how the bullpen had struggled in low-leverage situations, and even how tense the game was the last time these two teams played. It was 2-1 Gatemen going into the late innings, 2-2, as the Gatemen bullpen imploded again in the ninth inning. It took a 3-2 walk-off win against the hapless Whitecaps, and since those two teams last played, they've only got one win under their belts. It has been a rough going at it for Brewster, but 4-1. Not the most convincing against a team like this where the Wareham has the best run differential in the Cape, Brewster with the worst. But the fact of the matter is, it was good to see Jacob Goldfarb and more unlikely heroes get going for the Wareham Gatemen. Oliver Dunn with a monster game yesterday. Goldfarb with just his second hit all summer in 25 games. It was a big one for him. Isaac Collins continues to produce. Skylar Hunter has had a hot bat as of late. It's been good to see the unconventional, if you will, parts of the lineup produce for Wareham, and it was enough today against Brewster.
Goldfarb's 2-run double ends up being the game-winning runs, but they were only the game-winning runs because Connor Lunn was so good on the mound tonight for the Gatemen.
Yeah, spectacular start for Connor Lunn in his last start here with the Gatemen. Gets a rare win out of a start in the Cape League here. 5 shutout innings, only allowing a couple of guys to reach base. What I was impressed with, Henrique and I talked about this on the air, he was really challenging hitters, which is not something he does as much as other guys because he's not a big strikeout guy. He is a ground ball pitcher, but had that fastball working tonight, and he was really challenging hitters with that and didn't have to strand too many guys on base because he was so effective, getting ahead in the count, challenging hitters, power hitters especially, with the elevated fastball. I thought that was so good for him tonight, and it's a big loss for the Gatemen with him going off on an innings count for the rest of his summer. He's a guy, with them losing, you lose stability at the back end of your rotation, as we were talking about in the pregame. That's so crucial, and Connor Lunn has been so good for them all year, and just finishing in style tonight. Can't say enough about how good he was tonight.
So Connor Lunn continues to dazzle, finishes this Cape League season with a 2.29 ERA, and for the great performance tonight, well, he got our player of the game, and he got a chance to talk to our Marioters after a fantastic outing.
I'm here with the Gatemen player of the game, Connor Lunn. Connor, you went 5 innings with only 2 hits allowed and no runs. What was working out there for you on the mound today?
So I was going mainly with my fastball today, and then mixing in my slider, my changeup as best I could. I wanted to, on my last start of the summer, get my changeup a little dialed in and just kind of keep going with what I've been doing.
We were talking about your slider earlier. Do you think that was working well tonight?
Yeah, I think it was keeping the batters off the fastball, and it was giving me more life to my fastball, so I think it helped me out a lot.
And you also mentioned it's your last game as a Wareham Gateman tonight. How does that feel?
You know, it's really awesome to just know the fact that I've been here, and there's so many great players that have come through, and it's just an honor to be able to say I'm a Wareham Gateman.
And what were some of your favorite things about this summer?
Being able to play with the best competition in the country is kind of hard to beat, especially when we're doing so well. The team chemistry is just really awesome, so we're always having a good time out there. So, yeah, those are kind of the good things.
Connor, thanks so much, and good luck in the future. Guys, back to you.
Thank you very much to Mary, as always, and, of course, thanks to Connor Lunn for the final time this season. We'll see him on the Gatemen Baseball Network. Talk about a stellar night for him, but it would have been nothing if it weren't for a stellar bullpen day, something you talked about in the pregame show, Cam. The back end of the bullpen needed to be better. They certainly were today between Nathan Florence and Ryan Stoudemire.
Yeah, they were really struggling coming into this game, a big part of that 2-game losing streak coming in for the Gatemen. But it was a very positive night for the bullpen. They were kind of rolling the dice by putting Nathan Florence out there protecting a 1-run lead. Guy with an ERA over 10 this year. And I thought he looked pretty good. He had that strikeout stuff tonight, which we haven't seen from him this year. A couple of Ks from him in that relief appearance. It got a little bit shaky. He did give up the 1 run that Brewster came away with today. Back-to-back doubles that were both hit very hard. And at that point, it was 3-0, made it 3-1, or excuse me, 4-1, which was our final. So in the end, it was kind of all for naught for Brewster. And then Ryan Stoudemire I was also really impressed with. He's a guy who's really struggled. They put him in these high leverage situations, and he's been struggling this year to come through. He's been pretty wild in those situations, but he was right on it tonight. A little 5-out save out of the bullpen for Stoudemire, and he looked really good, capped off with that great defensive play at first base by Lyle Lockhart to end the game. But he had all his pitches working tonight. That one ball that was hit to Lockhart, that double play to end the game, was really the only hard hit ball he had all night. So I think that's a big positive for Ryan Stoudemire, a guy who hasn't pitched too much this year, so it's a guy you expect to have for most of the rest of the season. We could see him in a more high leverage situations coming to the back end of the bullpen going forward for the rest of this year. And when he came in, remember, when he came in for the 9th inning, Zach Hart was warming up in the bullpen. So he was on a short leash, and he was able to stay close to home with that short leash and got the job done. So real impressive night for both those guys, especially Ryan Stoudemire, who is going to have a bigger role, I think, going forward.
4th straight scoreless appearance for Ryan Stoudemire. Can't say much more about the bullpen tonight for the Gatemen. There were a lot of positives to take away from this 4-1 win over Brewster, but one of maybe the negatives to take away, a little bit over-aggressive on the base paths for the Gatemen today.
A little bit overzealous. We saw a controversial call that saw Skylar Hunter put out on what even was admitted, as we saw in our mid-game interview with first base coach Matt Miller, was that Skylar Hunter got a little bit over-aggressive. He was sitting on second base as soon as he heard contact, or he went from first to second as soon as he heard contact, kind of parked himself over there for a bit, and then he said, "Oh, shoot, that catch was made." He skirted on back to first. It was a little bit of a throw that carried right off the first base bag, so a little bit of a bang-bang play. But Skylar Hunter, I think, he was frustrated with the call, but he got gunned down there. That erased a base runner for the Gatemen, and the fact of the matter is they didn't really hit the ball all that much, so those the base runners, became all the more valuable. We saw Lyle Lockhart on his second base hit of the day, he tried to stretch into a double as the throw got away from a Brewster fielder, rolled up the line, and he tried to scurry on over to second. It was a bang-bang play. He didn't get it, though, so a little bit overzealous base running, but it was nice to see Pavin Parks register a stolen base, as well as Jacob Goldfarb as well. So a little bit more aggressive on the base paths against a Brewster team that, weirdly enough, despite a paltry offense and a torrid pitching staff, they have the second most steals on the year in the Cape League, 35 after all said and done today, right just behind the Chatham Anglers, second most in the Cape League. So they were trying to beat them at their own game, and they knew, which I was impressed with, was a little bit of more dynamic offense from the Gatemen. They knew that the hits were going to be hard to come by because credit Ben Dragani of Michigan, even though it kind of fell apart there at the end, you could see why. I mean, especially given the results of the last 2 games for these Brewster Whitecaps, why they didn't want to go into the bullpen, because the bullpen absolutely imploded the last 2 days for Brewster. So they wanted to stretch Dragani out as much as possible, and that third time through the order was a little too soon, or a little too late. And Dragani got rattled around. The Gatemen got things going. Jacob Goldfarb with a huge double to start off what hopefully is the beginning of a career resurgence for him on the Cape. But then the Gatemen knew that the runner was going to be few and far between, because Dragani was working well. They tried to get a little more aggressive. It worked sometimes, it didn't the other times, but due to, like we talked about, a great pitching performance, the Gatemen were able to come away with a victory, 4-1. See if they can do a little better tomorrow when we go to Stony Brook, the last park that the Gatemen have not visited this year. See if we can get a little twofer against the Whitecaps.
Home and home coming up with the Brewster Whitecaps tomorrow, but looking forward, maybe not even to just tomorrow, but toward the rest of the season. Now that Connor Lunn is done in terms of the Gatemen this season, who moving forward can kind of fill into that Lunn role?
Well, this switches around a lot of roles, both in the starting rotation and in the bullpen. We've talked about guys like Easton Lucas and Cody Carroll, who have had both been starters and relievers this year. The way I look at them right now, for me, those guys are starters going forward. That you don't have much more to play around with. And this puts in some higher leverage situations for guys I was talking about, like Ryan Stoudemire, like a Tyler Kaiser, who those guys I think fill in as sort of those Cody Carroll, Easton Lucas roles. Your first guy out of the bullpen who's going to give you 2, 3, 4 more innings. And this is where the signing of Derek West becomes pretty big. He's a guy who's going to have a bigger role going forward for the Gatemen. I think he can fill into that first reliever out of the bullpen type role pretty well. He's a guy who is coming off a couple of seasons prolonged by injuries, and so because of that, he's healthy now, so he's more well-rested, if anything. So he's got some innings left in that right arm, and I think his role is going to become bigger, but also guys like Stoudemire and Kaiser, we keep talking about those roles are getting bigger. Well, the stuff's about to hit the fan here. Connor Lunn's out, and Cody Carroll and Easton Lucas are going to be guys who are going to be starting a lot more.
Should be interesting to see what the Gatemen pitching staff looks like moving forward. But first, tomorrow, a matchup with the Brewster Whitecaps at Stony Brook Field in Brewster, Massachusetts. We will talk to you then. That'll do it for us here on the Gatemen Postgame Show. For Henrique DaMour and for Cameron Stuart, I'm JD Raucci saying so long, and make sure to tune into the Gatemen Baseball Network tomorrow for first pitch at 5 from Stony Brook Field.